Good evening. We'd like to open the planning board meeting of Wednesday, August 23rd at 7 p.m. Tonight we have President Guy Horn, Jr., Vice Chairman. We have Pam Humphrey, Clerk to the board. We have Sean Guerin, Member, Mark Marziotti, Chairman, and Don Johnson, Town Planner. So what we'd like to do first, we're going to go a little bit out of order. Last meeting that we had signed an A&R plan, and it was approved, but there was a missing registry block. And do you have the new plans, Don, with the registry block, or is that?
These are the ones with 6A, 6B, and...
Yep.
Your name, please. Your name, please.
Sheet over there.
Sign sheet.
Just could you sign in for us, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Looks good.
Looks good.
Anything?
So we will, I don't know that, we don't have to make a motion. We can just re-sign the plans because the only change is the registry block. So,
I'd say so. I agree with that, yeah.
huh?
I agree with that.
Okay. Is the board good with that?
Yep.
All right, great. You have a Sharpie, Don?
We need to sign 2 paper copies.
Yeah.
You have 2 paper copies with you? Just 1 paper copy. we need two paper copies to sign.
Just gonna say that.
Two.
Okay.
I have only one, that's what you need.
Can you make?
No, the paper that the white paper.
Was it just the 3 of us who voted on this, or are we all signing it?
We'll all sign it, but it was only you, me, and Kevin last meeting. But everyone can sign it.
The only issue was there wasn't enough room on the blocks, right?
Sorry?
The last meeting, the only issue was
There was no block.
no block.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Dominic, if you could just sign in over there, that would be great. Oh, you did? Okay.
They're all set still, so you can have those back. They're all signed. Do you have the Mylar? Okay, you're all set. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on in our agenda, we have approval of the meeting minutes for August 9th. We all did receive those in via email, so I hope everyone had a chance to read them. And I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from August 9th, 2017.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second to approve the minutes of August 19th meeting. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Okay. I'm going to skip over item B, and if Mr. Slingo shows up, then we'll go back to that. Item C. Are you Mr. Haney?
Yes.
Okay. So item C is a request of Dan Haney to discuss the completion and acceptance of Eisenhower Drive. Welcome, Dan.
A while back, Dawn and I met at the site with the highway superintendent,
And the subdivision is, I would say, more than 98% done. It's been that way for a bit. And I think we just need to formulate a punch list. And I know one of the, probably the major thing is getting a road acceptance plan in place. And I have sent that out to 2 different engineering firms to get pricing for them to do that for me. Other than that, I think the highway superintendent was very happy with the condition of the road. And then Don and I had a discussion about, I guess the plan actually calls for trees, and that's no longer something that's wanted. I'm not sure. I guess I need clarification on that.
Well, there was a time, I guess it was the early 2000s, when plans were being approved with the trees in the island between the sidewalk and the edge of the roadway.
Right.
But we found out since then, there's a couple of things that happen. It interferes sometimes with utility lines, and it also interferes with sidewalks, even the pavement of the street sometimes, where the roots tend to push up the sidewalks, so there are a couple of alternatives. They can go on the lot, or they can be relocated in some way. They don't
Okay.
interfere with the utilities.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, if we look back at the plan, obviously they're in the plan, and
Right.
you have some folks that bought into the neighborhood that I'm sure have been expecting the trees. So I'm not sure of my only concern about, waiving or anything like that, and this is my personal opinion, is it was promised to the people who are in the subdivision. So maybe the best approach would be to, approach each of them with maybe 1 or 2 solutions, rather than, oh, we want this kind of tree, or we want that kind,
I think on the plan, it actually defines the size and species of the tree.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think actually when we met with the highway superintendent, apparently, as those trees have gotten bigger, they're planted between the curb and the sidewalk. As they got bigger, the roots actually undermined the sidewalk. But
Yeah.
I'm happy to do, I mean, they're on the plan, and I'm happy to do it.
What they did in the subdivision that I live in is they actually planted the trees like right on the boundary line between the lots and on the boundary line for the taking of the roadway. So it would be like that the road, if it's a 50-foot taking and the road's 24 feet, then it's like 13 feet away from the road. So if they grow up, they don't have, they have less of a chance of, at some point in time, they may migrate out as far as the road, but they wouldn't be there, in the first probably 25 years of its life. It'd probably be.
I mean, I'll just do them per the plan if that's.
Well, if the plan shows them close to the edge of the road, you might want to think about putting them back. But
On one side, the back edge of the sidewalk is also the lot line.
it's also the lot line.
Yeah, so if to put them on, then be putting them on
I mean,
personal property rather than on,
yeah, I mean, the other option you could do is you could talk to the people in the subdivision and just ask them if they would like a tree planted at some place in their front yard, and, how many lots are there? 6?
no, there's, I think 10 or 11.
Yeah, there's.
Okay, so talk to the landowners and ask them if they would like a tree planted in their front yard, and tell them it has to be in, the first 25% of their front yard, but closer to the road. And if they say yes, then plant what was on the,
And if some do and some don't, then what do we do?
Or if, as a developer, I'm sure there's probably some trees with a different root system that wouldn't disrupt that. I mean, maybe there's a different species of tree that could be used that in 10 years or 15 or 20 years, it won't disrupt the, the curbing or the sidewalk.
do you remember what was specified? I thought it was red maples.
I think they had to be 2 inches in diameter and 12 feet high, and I don't recall the species. It's definitely on the plan. I don't
Yeah,
have.
typically,
Didn't see if anybody wants to look. Start out, sure.
I think typically it was red maples they were planting at that time.
Guy, were you on the board when this
Yeah.
came up?
Should be towards the end somewhere.
And see, there should be a planting plan, or some plan that
Probably
shows it.
towards the back.
Excel sheet.
Let's see, overall. There we go. Showing the trees in the grade, but not showing species.
Flowering cherry tree is is in the cul-de-sac,
Oh, there we go, okay, see it. yeah.
Rhododendron.
but I don't think we really wanna put any, Danny didn't really wanna have plantings in the cul-de-sac, did he?
I'm sorry?
The highway superintendent didn't really wanna have plantings in the cul-de-sac, was that part of it, cause it's easier to plow the snow?
Well, actually, we have that island there that's,
Yeah, are there plantings in there now?
no, it's grass.
There should be-
So did the highway superintendent weigh in on that as to
Yeah, I think-
whether he wanted anything planted in that in that circle of grass?
No, we didn't discuss that.
Didn't discuss the circle, no.
Yeah.
Street
The-
trees to be
the-
planted.
The one other thing you want to watch out for is, I used to work for the power company and gas company, so your utilities, your primary, around any of your transformers and everything, you want to keep that a minimum of, I think it is 12 feet. There should be a sticker on it, but
Mhm.
you want to keep that off away from those too.
Okay.
Because they definitely get into they go to the heat from the electric, and the roots go right to them.
Oh, really?
Okay,
That's just one of the things that,
Doesn't specify
trust me, I
type.
dealt with a lot of them.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see anywhere it says what kind you have to have. It
Oh,
just, it
okay.
just does say you have to,
Certainly,
Yeah,
2 inches in.
it gives you a size, it doesn't say,
Minimum height of 12 feet.
okay.
It
The
doesn't say
attract
what
is the
kind.
sewer
And it's-
pipes too, because it's probably because it's.
and the sewer pipes too, right?
Right,
The-
yeah, they go for moisture.
the plan does say on there, it does say that, the type and number of trees and location can be specified by the planning board. So, if
I
you
mean, I'm
can,
happy.
if you can get in touch with the homeowners and see how many of them would be willing to have a tree planted, you know, either right towards their front property line or somewheres in their front yard in the first, I'd say 20 or 25% of the lot. I mean, that wouldn't be really waiving anything. We would just be defining where they would go in and what kind of trees. And if everybody wanted a different kind of tree, I don't think it would really matter, as long as you were, you know, willing to buy that type of tree. I mean, if somebody wants a $10 tree and somebody wants a $100 tree, there might be a difference there, but, you know, regardless, I mean, I think in that size variety of trees, there probably wouldn't be that much of a difference in that size range.
And there's many hybrids out there too, so, I
Right.
mean, like the city of Boston went with, ginkgo, I think it is, ginkgo biloba, I think it is, one of the supplements you can take. It's one of those trees, actually. They're less apt to lift. They have a smaller root system, so.
Okay.
But then again, I mean, that's,
Has to be something that's fairly easy to
yeah.
take care of, you know.
And
You want to just plant it and leave it alone,
yeah,
too.
it's one of those ones you just plant and leave it alone, so.
Yep.
And they don't grow that big.
All right, and I'll discuss with the landscaper also about one that has a relatively small
Yeah,
root
he
system.
should be able to tell
So-
you exactly, so.
Okay. So as far as next steps, I think that we'll probably agree with, you know, the fact that need a punch list of the things that need to be taken care of and completed. So since you met with Danny, you probably understand and know what is necessary. Sounds like you've already got a couple quotes out for some, for that work.
I do.
And if you want to just get the, you know, the landscaping piece buttoned up and then come back to us and let us know, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, there was one in that meeting that we had. He said that they now wanted the road to be seal coated.
You know, it's basically the same things that you do for your driveway.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, that's
chips.
not on the plans or in the approval.
That's basically because of the length of time that it's happened from when you initially put the pavement in till now. So it's to like rejuvenate the asphalt, so it's not, the town won't be taking the road with whatever it is, I don't know what the years is. Has it been 5 years, 6 years, 10 years?
No, it's more, I think it's about 9.
Yeah.
9 years, okay, so instead of taking asphalt that's 9 years old, by putting the seal coat on it, it kind of reconditions it, so it's like we're taking a road that may be only relatively considered half that, 4.5 years or 5 years old. I'm not a asphalt guy, but that's their thinking. Dave's Way, which is right down the street from you, just recently got accepted at the last town meeting. They seal coated everything, and the town accepted it after that.
Mhm.
It's just if there's cracks in the road or something, which asphalt
Yeah,
cracks.
actually, surprisingly, there was only one.
Yeah,
There was one, and it was actually from one transformer. It was the electric line, and it was one in the entire length of the road.
okay, so it's just to fill in any cracks that might be there.
Mhm.
So Dan was the one who had made that recommendation?
Yes.
Did you
No, he
question-
didn't make that recommendation. He said it was, I think Don actually said it was something the town was requiring, which,
Mhm.
you know, I will certainly look into it, but it was not part of anything that was ever agreed upon, and it seems difficult when the rules get changed as the game goes on, so. And I'm sure on a, whatever it is, 900-foot or whatever, cul-de-sac, it's not gonna be cheap.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess there's a certain expectation as to when the, subdivision gets completed, that, the town would take the road over, it would become available for that, and
Right.
so it's relatively new, and that was the situation, Dave's Way, is it was, was very old asphalt, old subdivision, and that's what was required.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was manholes a few manholes that had sunken.
There's one manhole on this one that needs
It was
adjusting.
basic on Dave's Way, there was only the one in the beginning, which they had to rebuild and just lift it up a little bit, put it up to surface, and
There's
then,
by the end of the street too, it's similar to that.
yeah, and I think he just sealed the cracks itself. He didn't do the whole road, and he just sealed each
No,
crack.
he did the
Did he
whole
do
road.
the whole road?
He did the whole
Oh,
road.
okay, so, again, I don't know what that requirement is, but,
I think Dave Ways is like a 1,600-foot cul-de-sac with a boulevard entrance,
right.
so there was a lot more square footage there than what's in your subdivision.
I mean, I was down the subdivision the other day. It actually looks really good, so.
Okay.
Yeah, there were there was no settlement in the basins, the sewer manholes, everything,
Just one that needs adjustment at the cul-de-sac, that's all.
at the end of the
Correct.
cul-de-sac.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, I mean, if you want, I can, as those, I get that information, I can share it with Don, and
Yeah, pass it
he
pass it
can keep
along.
you posted, or if you need me to come back in, I'm happy to do that, too.
You want to accept it next year, everything has to be filed with the Board of Selectmen by the last day of January,
Okay.
so you get it on the April town.
Yeah, no, I would like
Springtime,
that, too.
yeah.
It's,
Mhm.
be good to,
And then work would need to be completed before the town meeting, right?
Theoretically, by the time the plan comes in, but,
Okay, so beginning of January,
so before the winter hits, in other
Mhm.
words.
yeah.
And it's tree planting season too.
I'm sorry, I
Tree planting season too,
yes, right.
September, October.
Yeah.
So I would talk to the homeowners about the trees.
Mhm.
You're getting the quotes for basically your as-built plan,
Mhm.
and get a couple of quotes on what the seal coating would cost, and then come back and we can discuss it,
Okay,
and maybe we can put it before the highway superintendent to see what he thinks,
Mhm.
If it's an absolute must, then that's what we're gonna require, but if it's not, then we'll discuss it.
all right. Well, that's certainly, we can look into it and go from there, but actually, former Governor Ed King signed a bill saying that municipalities could not require developers to do anything that they don't do. Such as, if you pave a road and you don't seal coat it within 2 years, you can't make a developer do it. If you use plastic water line, you can't make a developer use copper, that's that type of stuff. But, let me see what the cost is involved, and I'm certainly not here to be confrontational. I just want to get it done as we all do.
Yeah, I guess we're just trying to share with you the, path of least resistance, so
Sure.
it doesn't become an issue. Part of the reason why Dave's Way was delayed was because it didn't pass, or there was some information missing, or there was some pieces missing, and then I won't go into the details, but it got passed over several times at town meetings, and we certainly don't want to see that
No, I
see that
know.
happen. Especially if you do some of the stuff, and then you're gonna have to redo it again, you know? So we're just trying to provide the best advice for you so that you can come in, get it done, and
Yeah, I appreciate
on.
that.
and we appreciate you as a developer coming here and representing your property, and certainly building it with the infrastructure that you have. We can't always say that to all of, and there's a number of different reasons for that, but let me just say that we appreciate, you know, the way you've managed this subdivision and the fact that you've stood behind it up till now.
Thank you. All right, we'll work together and get it done, and
Great.
we'll all be happy.
All right.
All right, well, as those numbers come in and I get some information about the tree planting, I'll share that with Dawn, and if you want, I can come back at any time.
Okay, great. We'll try to make it so that you don't have to. If we get all the information we need from Don, then, you know, we can communicate that way if we want, but,
Sure.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night. Okay, so item B, we still do not have our applicant here, so we will go on to item D, discussion on finishing construction of and acceptance of unaccepted subdivision streets. And that was a result of Dan being here. And Don, I want to thank you for being persistent and having him come in. I know that you've reached out to a number of them. I don't know if you have any other updates on any other subdivisions?
No.
Okay. All right, that's D. E. Fall 2017 town meeting warrant articles, potential amendments to the zoning bylaws.
A couple of things that came up. There was one that was requested for parking of RVs.
Okay.
I have it here in your packet.
Okay. So we have an email here from Rich Kamagnani, our town treasurer. And the subject line is recreational vehicles. It came in on Tuesday of this week, the 22nd, yesterday. Don, please forward this email to the board. The town of Dudley has adopted zoning. Each zone within the town has permitted uses. My home on Airport Road lies in Res 15. The permitted uses for Res 15 list light commercial vehicles as permitted. It does not permit, it does not permit heavy commercial vehicles. It does not directly address the parking of campers, recreational vehicles, or trailers used for camping. Also, the zoning regulations do not allow for a campground or non-residential RV parking. My neighbor has had a recreational vehicle parked next to my home since April of this year. It is my claim that they are actively using the vehicle as a camper. The owners claim that the vehicle has been parked there passively. The situation calls for a clear definition of what may be parked there and what is considered the active use of a recreational vehicle. It is my contention the vehicle should be considered heavy commercial and its use to be considered that of an RV park or campground. So, just looking for some disposition on that. I guess the board can discuss.
I read, Mr. Chairman, I read this over, and I think that it's, I think it can be simply addressed with adding a definition in our bylaw for what is the definition for, as far as GVW goes, for light commercial vehicles, and what is, at what point does heavy commercial vehicles?
You can see I also attached a copy of the SDOT vehicle type classifications, traffic and travel resources, highway division.
Yeah, but this, the Mass DOT thing doesn't give us GVWs, and I think what we need is a GVW.
The problem with that is, with a Class A motorhome, you can drive that with a Class 3 license. You don't
Right.
need a bus license or anything like that, so.
Right, but I think you just need to find out what I mean, maybe it doesn't fall within,
It's a very gray area.
so I think we just need to add the GVWs to the bylaw to keep it simple. Otherwise, we're gonna make it more gray.
Difference between heavy and,
Heavy and light. We don't have a definition for heavy and light. We need a definition of heavy and light. So heavy and light should be defined by the GVW of the vehicle.
Yeah, it's not based on class of license, it would just determine what is light and what is heavy, based on the gross vehicle weight.
Right.
That's one idea. But that being said, if that was added, we still have before us a particular situation that needs to be clarified.
Well, whether, if the unit is being used to live in, then that, I think that matter falls within the Board of Health Department, not the planning board. I mean,
Actually, I think it goes to building and then Board of Health,
the
possibly.
zoning says that, you know, you can't have an RV park in Res 15. They don't technically have an RV park, they have one RV.
It's just one RV parked on a property.
Right.
Whether it's their registration or, I don't know whose registration it is, so.
I mean, a lot of
Florida
people,
plates.
Has foreign plates?
They may own a property in Florida. It kind of falls, again, it's a gray, I mean,
yeah.
how far can you investigate into it?
But I do think the simplest way would just be putting GVWs down for
And
the definition of light versus
That-
heavy.
And I am in agreement with you on that, but at the same time, you have some other properties where somebody that owns one of the largest Class A's you can have, they're on a farm property up on, say, Ramshorn Road or wherever, they can't park it there?
Well, I mean, you're gonna have people like, I know for a fact on, what is it? Dudley Hill Road, I mean, that's Res 15, it's right across the street from the golf course, and you got people who work for the bus company and,
Parking their buses.
parking their buses
Right.
there, and those buses have to weigh as much as that camper does.
Yeah.
And, I mean,
Box trucks, whatever, I mean.
yeah,
it could
if
be
somebody
anything.
has a trailer truck driver and they bring their tractor home for the
Right.
weekend and park it in their driveway so they can go back to work on Monday morning, I mean, that might be, you have to look at all these things.
There's a lot there, so,
Mhm.
I mean,
We had that situation with the tractor trailer being parked next to the old library on Village Street.
on Village Street, correct.
And that went to a town meeting, and I don't know what they did about it. I remember it being at the town meeting, but I don't, obviously, they didn't put any GVWs into the law, because it's not included yet.
I mean, you're getting into private property rights, you're getting into, there's a lot of areas there, so, I mean, I can understand if it's an eyesore, if it's an issue, you're having an issue with the neighbor, there's gotta be something else there, besides getting government boards, town government boards involved.
But I think if we look at, you know, the complaint, let's just call it, it's not necessarily that it's parked there, but it's actually parked there and being used.
Correct.
So,
But how do we investigate that?
Yeah,
It's
so-
It's his word against the owner's word.
yeah, so again,
From what we're reading.
I think the recommendation of the Board of Health is a good one. Do you know if Mr. Carmignani has approached anyone else other than the planning board about this?
I don't know, we may have approached the building inspector, but
Yeah.
I don't know if we approached the Board of Health.
I think that would go to building and then Board of Health, but.
Because, I mean, even if you own this vehicle and you're not using it for camping purposes, I mean, you could have a legitimate reason to go into that vehicle every day, whether you're maintaining it, cleaning it,
100%.
loading it, unloading it,
Right.
getting it ready for the
I
next
have,
trip.
I have one on a property now, so it's,
But
Not living
going,
in
but
it.
going into it and living in it are two different things.
Right.
For sure. And I think it would be fairly easy for someone to determine that. And,
But how would you determine that? Sending, like,
does
the
this
police
personal
out to look
belongings in
at
it, or,
it?
I
It's-
mean,
if
Well,
it's
how
lit up,
would
if
we-
it's lit up in the evening,
What if they're just
been
having a
working
card
and
party?
playing in there. It's a tough
So
thing.
it's-
It could be
that-
playing
yeah,
cards,
yeah.
just get out of the house. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a tough situation.
Is it connected to water and sewer?
That's the area I would go to. If it's connected to a sewer,
Once again, how
connected
do
to.
we find out? Do we
how
just
do you-
go, yeah.
Well, you can see the lines connected. Is it connected to a 30 amp? But at the same time, a 30 amp could be just keeping the batteries charged and everything else. Or a 50 amp, so. I completely understand the issue, and it's just, it's too gray of an area. And I wouldn't know where to start
'Cause it
on,
almost seems like neighbor against neighbor.
exactly. I mean, go over with a couple of Cokes or a couple of beers and say, hey, can we talk?
Exactly.
I mean, personally, that's the route I would take first.
Wonder if we can do something with setbacks.
I mean, I know it is close to his property line. That
It
could
is
maybe
close.
move it.
No, it's lined up with the edge of the garage, so it's not any closer to the
Okay,
property
so-
than the garage
okay.
is.
So then, that's, yeah. That's like having a shed on close, and you can have a shed within, what, 5-10 feet, so.
I mean, it would be no different than if, I mean, it would be no different than if it was a covered utility trailer that you stored your lawnmower in or your snowmobile.
Correct.
Right in the property line might be something different, yes.
I mean, I know also there was a problem a few years back with a gentleman that had a number of trailer trucks and boxes that were not on trailers, that were just on the ground, and whether that was considered a building or not a building, or a vehicle or not a vehicle. But I don't,
Again,
I don't
is it
think
on a,
anybody-
is it on a foundation? Is he using it as a
And I don't think any-
makeshift shed? I mean,
think any bylaws
right.
changed because of that problem either. It just stayed the same.
It's just like I said, it's such a gray area to go with. I mean, I'm all for rectifying it, but
Well, again, the first issue that's raised is, permitted light commercial vehicles, and it's the opinion of the claimant that it's a heavy commercial vehicle, and that unfortunately
Is it
can't
right?
be determined because the bylaw doesn't define the weight, doesn't,
at the same time, is it registered as a commercial vehicle, or is it registered as a RV?
but either way, it's light or heavy, so it would be commercial, but is it still, if it's registered as commercial, is it light or is it heavy? So that's the first issue, but again, I think that's outside, it's outside of the bylaw that is written, and it can't be determined by us whether it's light or heavy, unfortunately.
You need an officer of the building or Board of Health to look into that, I guess. I mean,
And then the second claim is that they are actively using the vehicle as a camper. And so I think that would probably go to, again, either building department or the Board of Health. It's really not for us to determine how it could be verified that it's being used as a camper by sewer hookups or what have you. I think that it's just outside of our purview, and if anyone disagrees, please chime in. But
I concur, I think it's out of our jurisdiction.
I agree.
So, Don, do you have comments? Recommendations?
We can check to see if there's anything we want to do with gross vehicle weight. I don't know.
It's opening up
It
it's
is
opening
a
up a
gray
can of
area
worms.
because
It's
But
opening up
again,
a
if
can of
you,
worms.
okay, so if we determine that, the gross vehicle weight of,
26,000.
and nothing's determined, I don't think that it's weighted as, okay, a 3,000 gross vehicle weight categorizes, anything 0 to 3,000 is light commercial, and anything over 3,000 is heavy commercial. I don't know how that's determined.
Well, I think you gotta look at what's the weight of different vehicles, like I was just saying earlier. I mean, if a school bus is gonna fall into heavy commercial, then we've got a problem with people parking these vehicles in
Even with
residential
a-
areas.
Even with a home-based business. or
And if a tractor
That's where the
trailer,
things
just
are.
the tractor part is considered heavy commercial, then we're gonna have more problems. So we need a definition. We can make the definition what we want, but we need a definition that's gonna be liberal enough to accept these other
Things that you
other
mentioned.
uses,
Mhm.
right? To see if it's gonna be doable.
Just feels like we should pass over this for right now. I don't think there's anything we can do with it right this minute.
Well, somebody's gonna, somebody would have to champion it.
Not gonna be me.
Okay. I'm already on one other thing, so I can't do two at
Yeah.
once. Yeah, I mean,
What are the definitions of, between light and heavy commercial?
I think it has to be, I think the only way you can define light and heavy commercial is to put a GVW on it. Honestly, I mean, how are you gonna say it
The
otherwise?
registration of it.
I don't think they have light and heavy registrations.
If it's commercial, it's commercial. If it's private, it's private. I mean,
Yeah,
Pam has
exactly.
horse trailers. I
Yeah.
mean, some
Parked
horse
in my
trailers
yard.
go as much as the track that you were just talking about, so.
Yeah.
That's a very, very tough gray area, and I mean,
And usually one RV
if,
is
if,
private.
if the plaintiff is listening, talk to the neighbor. I mean, that's all I can say.
That's the
I
easiest
agree.
solution.
And then we can go, you know, if nothing comes of it,
I mean, say I go buy a fifth wheel,
Yeah, you gotta put it
I
someplace.
gotta put it somewhere, and, you know, I want this, I want it on my property, but I can't have it on my property because my neighbor's upset about it. And I understand that he sees people going in, but I'm gonna be maintaining it, you have to maintain it. The more it sits, the worse it, you know,
Oh, yeah,
causes
yeah.
problems,
You
so.
let it alone for 6 months and you'll have mice living in it.
Exactly.
So just doing a quick Google search, I'm finding light trucks, classifying commercial vehicles, and I'll verify the source here in a second. Light trucks up to 10,000 pounds gross vehicle weight. Medium trucks, 10,000 to 20,000. Heavy trucks, so again, we're getting into the right terminology, right? 20,000 to 45,000 gross vehicle weight. Extra heavy trucks over 45,000.
Okay, so what about RVs and campers? Totally different registration,
Okay.
in category.
Trailers, yeah, this just gets into trailers, so.
Where'd you find that?
So that's just classifying commercial vehicles, that's MAIPF, which is,
I think that's for registering them and insuring them.
just classifying commercial vehicles. But,
Yeah, okay, so we know there's an issue. I mean, we can't, there's probably nothing we can do to change it by town meeting, unless somebody wants to do a petition article. But I think any petition article, if it's, you know, if an article's written specifically to solve one problem, it's gonna create another.
exactly,
100%.
yeah, exactly.
How zoning works?
Well, I mean, it's just, this is such this is an area that can affect,
And outside of this email, we don't really have much to go on. You know,
Another one
he didn't come to talk to us tonight, or, so.
okay. Well, I don't think this was a bad discussion. I think it's important that we probably do identify what qualifies a light commercial vehicle and what qualifies a heavy commercial vehicle. I don't think that would be a bad article to architect for our upcoming planning board meeting. I don't believe that that's going to help I don't think that's going to help Rich in this situation necessarily. There's been a recommendation to, you know, approach the neighbor, have a conversation, and, you know, chat about what its actual use really is. I think that's a good constructive recommendation. And then, I guess, short of that, the recommendation would be to get the building department, the building inspector, and possibly the Board of Health involved to determine if it in fact is being actively used as a camper to qualify or disqualify the claim. But as far as, you know, the vehicle being parked, it's a vehicle that needs a home, and I guess there are places for them, but unfortunately, at this point, it's in the front yard of someone's home, so. I guess at this point, those are the recommendations. I'll work with you, Don, if you want to maybe see if we can identify, some of the moving pieces here. Maybe we can work with Rich and make those recommendations to him.
Okay.
And see if we can get involved and offer or lend a hand to try to see if it's something that we can kind of, have them work out. And if not, then we can continue moving forward with the recommendations that we just talked about, so.
Okay. Back to you tomorrow.
Sound good to the board?
Sounds good?
Yeah?
Yep.
Any more dialogue? Okay. All right, so we'll move on to,
Well, there was also the
what's that?
solar overlay district we were talking about.
Okay,
Yeah, it's in the same package.
okay.
So I'd like to just give the board an update on what I found out from town of Charlton. So I learned about this last year. The company that I work for in Charlton is a medical device company, and it's currently situated in an agricultural zone. The land on which the factory is built today wasn't rezoned, it was just given, at the time, this was 20-some-odd years ago, given some kind of special grant by the town to have the factory built there. The company I work for is probably the largest private employer in Charlton. We employ about 600 people in Charlton. And recently, one of our sister companies who was located in our factory last year moved out and moved to the business center in Southbridge, where they're currently located. And I think the plan is, overall, over time, is to merge the two companies back together at the one location in Charlton. So what the town of Charlton did for this last year was they put in a Medical Research and Development Overlay District. And their acronym for it is MRDOD. And we currently have some overlay districts in Dudley now. We have one, we have a mill overlay district in Dudley for all the mills. It covers all the mills in town, to be used for different mixed uses, whether it be residential, commercial, or retail. So an overlay district it's not a bad thing to have. It does give the town a lot of flexibility with different things and different situations. The other thing that's kind of nice about an overlay district is the original zoning, the underlying zoning never leaves the land, it still stays there. So you're basically giving the parcel of land another use, or another prospective use, but you're not taking away the original underlying zoning that's there on that parcel of land. So in this particular case, for the company that I work for, they put an overlay district on approximately 79.78 acres of land, off of an assessor map 43. There's 3 different lots that were referenced here. And basically what they're allowing with this overlay district, permitted uses, subject to the grant of a special permit by the planning board, the following uses are permitted individually or in combination with other permitted uses in the Medical Research and Development Overlay District. And they were saying biotechnology, fiber optic facilities, medical research and development, scientific research, laboratory, light manufacturing of medical equipment, warehousing, distribution facility, offices, and associated accessory uses. So my thought was, when I saw that this worked for a specific parcel of land in Charlton, we had the situation last year where we had a parcel of land that was originally zoned residential. It changed to industrial, and then it was rezoned to residential at the landowner's request. Now was coming back to us last town meeting, and they were asking to have it put back into industrial so that they could have a solar farm. So my thought was, why couldn't we use this device as an avenue to satisfy their situation? And since then, I believe now we're up to, a total of 4. So we have the O'Connor property that we're talking about on the edge of Oxford. We have the Derschmidt property that's off of Ramson Road, I believe, that's come forward and asked if they could have a solar farm. I know you said there was a new one. You wrote me an email today, Donna, said there was another one.
Someone who approached me earlier in the week, yes.
okay? And there was another gentleman who approached me for a solar field in a residential area in Dudley, but
Yeah, he came before us, didn't he?
it's high up on that was the Dershmitt one, the gentleman that came.
Oh, okay.
And this other one is high up like on a hill, on a plateau too, so that it wouldn't be really seen by any of the budding neighbors. So there's, from what I know right now, we probably have a possibility of 4 prospective, large-scale solar projects that would like to go forward in Dudley, but we currently have our zoning set where the only places they're acceptable is in industrial land or in the conservation land where the old dump was situated. So looking that up quickly, that's basically 850, right now we have 850 acres of land in Dudley that's zoned that can have a solar farm on it. And we have, I believe, in excess of 12,000 acres. So there's a large amount of Dudley that's not permissible. So I think to help these people out that would like one, I mean, we do, the way this overlay district works is it's not a sure thing. It's not like you get your name on the overlay district and you got a solar farm. You still have to go through a site plan, just like anything else. So if they come in and they're not following the rules and regulations that we have for our solar, in our solar bylaw, and they're not following the rules and regulations of the site plan, they can be denied. But if they come in and they are following all the rules and regulations that we currently have between our solar bylaw and between our site plan, then, we have the ability to grant them a special permit, and they can go ahead and build their solar project.
And this overlay district would obviously need to be approved at town meeting.
Yeah, it would be basically an addendum to our current zoning bylaw. And I mean, for right now, it would only take into measure the four projects that we know about. It wouldn't be for any other.
But what if somebody else came in? Why wouldn't it affect them?
It wouldn't affect them because they're not listed on the overlay districts. I mean, we could.
So we're only gonna do it for these 4 people.
Well, this is what I don't know. I'm not a.
Wouldn't that be spot zoning?
No.
Exactly.
Well, this wasn't considered smart zoning, and they did it for just one 80-acre parcel.
But
Okay.
like that first
My-
solar
my-
farm
my-
was considered,
I mean, I'm all for the overlay. I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly, I do. The one question I do have is say the one at the Oxford line where it has industrial land abutting it, that it was industrial land at one point. I don't have a major problem with that one. We went, Marcia went through all that work to change that bylaw. The other one is in the middle of residential and agricultural land, which it does state in the Mass General Law, or I forget what chapters and everything like that, but it does say clear cutting of forest. There's like over 5 acres of forest they're gonna clear cut up there.
is that on Ramsay you're
yeah.
talking about?
Along with being in the middle of agricultural, which it says we recommend not to put in agricultural land. So, I mean, I wouldn't have a major problem if it was a commercial, industrial area that it's abutting, like the Oxford Ave one, but in the middle of middle of agricultural, I do have an issue with it.
But I think we can't pick and choose.
Again,
But-
I mean, that's
we're gonna-
almost what we're doing in the other way.
I think if we're gonna have an overlay district that has specific lots, I think we have to have it set up where we have like an enrollment, okay? If you wanna do a solar farm in an area that's not currently permissible, you have to sign up, all right? You sign up, you put your list down, you list your lots and where they are, and we have a review of that, and we put it up.
So that's something that you could put down and say, there's a possibility down the road, I'd like to put one in.
Somebody who has the intention of doing this, or has
Okay.
the potential, or if there's a solar company approaching them and they have a need for this or a want for this, they come and say, okay, my property is currently not zoned for this, but I would like to get in on the overlay district, they would sign up. And we would have,
Yeah, and I
we have
agree,
2 town meetings a year, so we
I do agree
do
with
a-
that. At the same time, I just see another can of worms being opened.
we do approvals for overlay district extensions or additions in the spring, and then in the fall is when we grant the permits.
Look what we went through on the other. is what
But
I'm
I,
getting at.
but I think I think it's a decent idea, but you make a good point, Sean. you know, I guess at some point, we, you know, we as the board would be the ones to determine whether this property qualifies or not.
I don't think it would be the board. I think it would be, we have a public hearing. We're gonna have a public hearing. People are gonna come in. We're gonna either know there's a lot of contention with this one or there's not. If there's not,
Mhm.
you let it go.
I think you have to look at some certain characteristics too, south-facing slopes and things of that type.
Right, I mean, no solar
Again,
company,
I mean,
no solar
nobody's-
company's gonna wanna
They're
build
not-
this
they're not
on.
gonna- They're not gonna approach anybody that's not fitting the qualifications, so.
Right,
Yeah, I can't imagine that they would come to us if it wasn't an optimal site.
I mean, there's new, I mean, solar has come leaps and bounds onto, I mean, they've got the flower, they got the trees now that open and close when it rains. I mean, there's a million things they can do nowadays. And I think that's, I mean, that's cool, it's awesome. But when does it stop? When does it, I mean, when does it stop being good for the residents and, or the people and good for the, I mean, it's a tough, it's another gray area. I'm sorry. I'm all for it.
well, I mean, if
I
you,
mean, it's another way of
There's a
the
copy-
town bringing in, you know, revenues and everything like that, which is
There-
great. We need it, but
there's a copy of, Charlton Solar Bylaw attached in here, and if you,
Just, there's not much to it, it's just
no, but if you look at it,
it's defined and it's allowed.
there's nothing there.
if you look at, if you look at the Charlton Solar Bylaw, it's permitted in every zone.
We don't
Which we
have-
just got out of.
Right.
That's fine. No, you're exactly right, and the bylaw was written, and we encouraged Marcia to write it if that's the way she felt, and the town agreed with that. I guess it's just looking at, you know, different ways to permit something that I think is positive for the environment. So I know that Marcia's passion to change this was, you know, certainly town appeal, but in the same respect, there's a lot of damage that the carbon footprint does to our world as well, you know, so there's a lot of different ways to look at it.
Just the manufacturing of solar panels does twice that damage of the
Yeah.
carbon footprint. So, and that's proven fact, so.
I don't think.
Especially
I
when they're
don't-
made in China, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think Dudley needs to turn into a whole
I'm sorry,
huge
there's just, I
town
think
of
we should
solar
be
farms.
working on other commercial entities also, trying to get some
Yeah.
help in town business. I agree with the overlays, I do, I truly do.
To an extent,
I
but
mean,
why would we
but
just
to
did
an
that
extent,
bylaw
where does
last
it
year,
stop?
right?
2 years ago.
Marcia did that 2 years ago? And so it just feels odd that we're coming back and kind
Well,
of
we
just
have, we have
redoing that
to,
completely.
we promised the people that, at last year's town meeting, that we would try to do something to help them. So how are we gonna help
Wait,
the people with the,
oh, the O'Connors?
And
Yeah,
again-
Yeah, oh, no kidding, that was.
And again,
Yeah, I don't think.
it's a budding
Budding,
industrial land.
Exactly. I
All
think
right,
there's a
so we
lot
have
more
to
we
come
can
up
do
with
about
something.
that.
Right, but
We were told by
where
town
there's no industrial
council-
land down there,
We were told by town council that it wasn't acceptable to do it by just rezoning the one lot.
That was
Correct.
just spot zoning.
Right,
That's
so
what-
this is what I'm trying to get around here. But what we can't do is we can't just put it in for one person. If we're gonna do it, we have
And again,
to, we have to open it up to a few other people
I
here.
back you up 100% on this. I truly do. It's just, there's a lot of work to be done.
I mean, we're talking about right now, we know of 4 proposed sites that this could help. Whether 5 acres of, whether 5 acres of trees get cut down for a solar field, or if somebody buys it and wants to build a
Okay,
house
so
on it,
say-
they're gonna cut the
say-
5 acres of
say we
trees
got-
down.
Guys, one at a time, please.
I'm sorry. Say we get this through town meeting and we do this, and all of a sudden now the person says, I want to put this up. Have the abutters already been notified prior?
No, nothing's happened. We're just putting it,
I'm just saying.
we're
I
putting
mean,
in an overlay district.
because now they said, oh, well, we changed that back at the town meeting back there. Where were you? You know, I mean,
None of the
Well,
abutters
they
have been
don't-
notified for
The
anything.
butters don't get notified for zoning change.
again, I understand that. I
Yeah.
do understand. I'm saying that now that we change it and we do it at town meeting and everything else, and now the person wants to put a solar farm in, they've come in with a site plan, now the abutters are being approached. That's what I'm getting at. I mean, granted, everybody, please come to the town meetings, that's where we need you, but you need to be involved. And if you're not, I mean, you're behind the 8 ball again. We're gonna end up in the same situation that we did the last time.
You can put a procedure in the overlay district.
I, I'm just saying,
Just, just not much to it.
I mean,
It's just,
but to an extent, where does it stop?
according to the overlay district, a specific procedure.
No, we add that as, would you permit, what do we do, send out a census to, would you permit a solar farm in your backyard again? That we changed that bylaw? I mean, granted, if it's an industrial area, I understand that, but if you're in the middle of agriculture, you bought the property, you love your bobcats, you love your moose, you love your deer, you're growing corn, whatever. Do you want an erector set in your backyard? That's all I'm getting at. I mean, and again, seriously, I back that idea 100%. At the same time, though, we have to have, there's a lot of situations in there that come to play.
I think Sean has a very good point. There's a difference between industrial and agricultural. Really is.
I mean, Main Street, with the overlay on Main Street, we did the Business 15 overlay. It's a main, Wayfair, it's made for it in a sense. At the same time, how much can you put on that? I mean, you're talking a lot of money to change your property up to do something if you have to appease the site plans and, so much parking, so much whatever, depending on the business. I mean, I'm all for the future and building the town up to make something. But again,
Part of Dudley is being a farm town. I don't think we really want to get that far away from it. Yes, we do need businesses desperately, but we have to somehow keep.
no, the town's it's gonna implode with the tax rate's gonna go through the roof sooner or later.
I have a handout here, you might want to take a look at. Solar unclassified land, chapter 61, 61A, and 61B land.
Mm-hmm.
So, take a look at that and see what we can include in that. It's not really a zoning issue per se.
How many you gotta
It's a
be
tax
signed?
classification, but nevertheless, it affects everything.
Thank you.
You're all familiar with chapter 61 and 61A, right?
Yes. Thank you, Don. I think we should just,
Can you give us the Reader's Digest version of this, Don?
Basically, if it's a solar, solar farm, so to speak, for the farm itself, to generate electricity for the milking of dairy cows or whatever it may be, that's allowed. But if it's a commercial solar farm, it might trigger that right of first refusal for the town. It comes in place before it's converted.
if I may, we did a similar thing out in Oklahoma, which I was involved in. And basically, it was the capturing of the methane gas from a pig farm. And they basically run the entire farm on it. That falls right into play with what you're talking about. But you cannot use it for any other entity. It has to be used solely for that property.
There was something like that going on at Woodstock, Connecticut, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the works, one or the other.
So, I mean, that's a different story, though. That's property rights, and that's being used for private property.
All right, so then all I can say is I don't know of any other way. I haven't thought of any other way that we can satisfy the situation for the people that are the O'Connors on Oxford Road.
Well, it sounds like the board is in agreement that the property on Oxford Ave wouldn't have an issue with. It's how many others would be part of this overlay district. And so what that leads me to believe is that, again, if this overlay district is defined and has specific I's to dot and T's to cross, and there are certain requirements that would qualify them or not qualify them, like, is it visible from, any residential home? Is it an agricultural land? If it's agricultural land, absolutely not. If it's a Res 15, even though it's permitted, it would qualify in the in the overlay district, as long as it wasn't visible by any other, we could put some parameters in there that would qualify or disqualify based on what the board's pleasure is.
I worked in one of these years back. Basically, though, it was an overlay district, and it was over 2 former landfills and one existing underutilized industrial park, so
Yeah.
it was an overlay situation.
So, I mean, I'm sure that the town of Charlton did some investigating on, you know, what the waste or what the impact in all of the different areas of the town of Charlton biotechnology would have, what fiber optics facilities would have, what these manufacturing facilities, what impact they would have before they could say, yeah, we'll allow biotechnology in this overlay district. So I don't think that there's any reason why we can't do the same thing, but it wouldn't necessarily be impact of waste or whatever. It would be impact of the area. Are there specific areas that we just don't want to allow? So in this solar farm overlay district, it couldn't be in agricultural. It couldn't be in whatever other areas or districts we don't want. That's step one. Step two, if, you know, so it's permitted in Res 15, Res 35. However, if it's in Res 15 or Res 35, it cannot be visible by any residential home. Okay, check off box number 2, I qualify for that one. Number 3, okay, I've met all the criteria, so I qualify for this overlay district to put this solar farm in.
Right, does your project require the cutting of more than 5 acres of land?
Exactly.
Or,
Yeah,
you know,
that's-
more than 10 acres of
Yep.
land of forest? If it's gonna be just set up
Right.
in fields,
Right.
I mean, and
Yeah.
these fields aren't doing anything.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
the forests are
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, that you talk about environment, that's nature.
But again, you understand, Sean, that someone owns that land, and if it's a Res 15 or an industrial or whatever,
I do understand that.
they can put a building there and they can cut more trees down than
I
they
do
put in
understand
solar.
that 100%.
So, anyway, but again, I think Guy has done a great job at least bringing the tip of the iceberg to us. I think that there's a lot more work that needs to be done, and I don't think that we should just shut the door on it. I think that what we need to do is say, okay, well, what's the next step here? And we don't like this, this, and this of the overlay. Okay, no problem. Let's define what those pieces are. Let's figure out what that looks like. And then, and we can work on this for a while, but, you know, we owe it to a resident or several residents that are interested in doing certain things to at least do this research, that's all.
Completely agree, 100%, I do.
Okay. So I think that we, continue to develop, and I appreciate what you've done so far. You guys are very vocal about specific things that you would like to make sure are part of this overlay district, so we can either actively as a board continue to work on this each meeting, or we
100%.
can do it outside of the meeting, or whatever we
100%.
want to do. But I think it's important that we continue to flesh this out.
I mean, I think we can get something done, definitely. It's just that
I mean,
there's a lot of parameters to be met.
if we wanna do it for next town meeting, we're talking like weeks here, not months.
No, I know.
Well, it might end up having
It's gonna
to
go
be
to, I
delayed
think.
from then,
Yeah.
but unless, we can, my recommendation would be to put together a checklist of where you guys, or where any of us would not want it to be, and define some characteristics of what would be a deal breaker, visible by any residential home, or any resident in the town of Dudley. Wetlands, conservation, whatever. Let's put that checklist together, maybe have those available for our next planning board meeting, and then we can see how we can integrate that into this existing overlay template, and then walk through that and see how that sounds to us, and then see how close we are at that point.
Sounds good. I'm just curious, how many solar farms do we have in Dudley right now? 4?
I think it was 2, right?
Three.
Four.
Three.
Is West Dudley
Three,
Road?
three constructed, there's one under
Bosque?
construction.
There's one under construction.
Huh?
There's one under construction still.
On West Dudley.
What's up?
Is that stopped? Has that been stopped, or is that going forward? I keep getting like,
I keep on getting conflicting reports
So
on
does
that.
I
anybody
don't,
know?
I didn't know that it even started yet.
Well,
The West Dudley one, Fish Road?
Well, it hasn't been started up yet. It hasn't been
Okay.
completed, right.
So we only have the one, do we have one,
Next
the
to
one
Am-
at Shepherd Hill and behind
and the one on,
Bosket?
On
Bos-
Central Road, or Center Road.
yeah,
whatever
coming
it
down
is.
Center Road.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And that one's up to, that's actually working?
Yes.
How much have we gotten, how much has the town gotten from those solid funds so far?
I don't know, that's part of the pilot program.
Hmm.
I'm just wondering.
I know
Yeah,
that-
over the course of 20 years, it was, I don't know, $30,000 or $40,000.
You did
No,
bring up
it was more than
one
that.
point, the Center Ave one too. I think
That was one
we
of
need to
them.
look at the trees on that for the screening.
The one that's on, by the high school, that's $32,000 a year in pilot program money, so over 25 years.
Oh, 30,000 per year.
Yeah, it came out to like $900,000 they were gonna pay in for taxes.
Has that started kicking in yet, do you know?
I would assume so, I believe
That's year one.
so. I mean, you could talk to the Board of Selectmen are in charge of
Right.
that.
And that can be prorated down if it's not producing, correct? But we're not part of that that.
We don't negotiate the
Yeah, exactly.
contract,
So
so,
that's another thing.
but that's not our
I know,
jurisdiction.
I agree, but still.
But
I mean,
again,
how-
at the end of the
How do the
day,
taxpayers find out about
at
it?
the end of the day, I don't think that the passion that, you guys have is whether the town's gonna make money or not make money. It's
Well, I'm all for
conserving,
helping the town.
conserving the integrity of Dudley. Right? I mean, isn't that really what it
Well,
comes
it's
down to?
partially that, but at the same time, we need the commercial business to help the residential taxpayer, 100%.
But we don't get it year after year. Been here 17 years.
Because
We don't get
and
it.
what do? You fight residents all day long,
No.
so.
But you don't get it because of our location and what we have.
No.
So, I
So you're
mean,
gonna make it an entire solar field? I mean, it's just, I'm sorry, I just got.
But that's not what this is designed to do.
No.
Again,
I
We're getting
completely,
off
and
topic, right.
again, we're getting off topic there. I understand, and, I'm sorry for that. So, again, I'm all for an overlay. I mean, I'm behind that 100% on, I mean, like we have already done. I just think there's certain parameters when we start getting into to the solar fields and everything else that or other entities of such, whether it's wind turbines or whatever, you need to really look into it.
okay.
Thank you for the
All
time.
right, well, good. Yeah, that's good discussion. Guy, thank you very much for following through and doing what you said you would do. And I do encourage the board to take that homework assignment seriously and bring some things in for our next meeting, which will be September 13th. And let's see if we can take it to step 2 and see if it is something that we can develop in time for town meeting in May. I think that would be a
When
good
does that
goal
have
for
to-
us.
When do we have to have that done? by?
January 1?
It's later than that, it's like March.
So if we
Yeah, it's
target
like March.
January, then,
March 23rd
I mean,
or
I think
something
we've
like
got,
that.
I think we certainly have time to make this work. But again, it will be a matter of how important it is to us to come here with the things that, we need to share and should be part of this overlay.
I don't know if you want to get in this fall town meeting, I've worked fast before, but
When does
Oh,
that
I
close?
see, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Oh, that's because the guy was saying we have weeks. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think those people were expecting that we would have something for them for this town meeting, and
Well, when does it close? When do we have to have it in by then?
depending on the town meeting is, I think it's usually the last week of October, so the warrant would close about the
middle of,
October.
I thought it was more like the middle of September.
Beginning, yeah, it's the latest.
I can send an email to the selectman's office to find out
I don't think they've said it yet.
when it opens and closes. You usually got like 2 weeks to get your articles in.
Yeah. It'll probably be in early October.
So we have a little while then.
Mhm.
So if we really do, as Mark put it, do our homework and come up with something by September 13th, we might still be able
Yeah.
to get something done.
yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone's arguing with the concept of the overlay. It's a
It's just
good,
the
it's
the
not even an
details.
argument, it's a conversation about what we want it to be, where we want to allow it to have happen, and I think that's important, and it's our right, so
I mean, I
we can
just,
share that information, and as long as the townspeople agree with that, then we can satisfy town residents across the board, so.
right, I just think we have to, I just think we have to be fair. If we're gonna get down into specifics, I think we have to be fair in that, like I was saying, specifically, like tree cutting. I mean, we can't say,
No trees can be cut.
right, I mean, it's gotta be,
It has to be
No, but
reasonable.
I mean,
Well,
that's part of, but that's even part of the Mass General Law section of it. I remember that.
Forestry plans, yes.
Yeah. And the thing is, as Mark said, you know, your neighbor can do whatever he wants. I agree, he can, but that's private property rights. When you're doing it for a commercial entity, that's a different story.
but it's still on private property.
For a commercial entity. It's not for that private property itself.
Well, I mean, right now, it doesn't make sense for an
Granted,
individual.
he's getting a paycheck out of it, but
Right, but for right now, it doesn't make sense that individuals go out and buy 1,700 solar panels and put them in their yard. But at some point in time, it may.
but they can. That's them. That's not somebody else.
But again, I mean, it's semantics, I think. So I build a building for someone else to run a business in. It's my property, I can do whatever I want, right? So.
It's your property.
Yeah.
You're the sole proprietor of that property.
Mhm.
You're not doing it for somebody else's business, is what I'm getting at.
Right, so you're saying solar, someone comes in and leases the land. It's the land. It's, I want to use it to lease. I want to use it to let someone put cows in and,
There has to
and
be-
milk them, right?
Again, milking
this is
cows in a solar field
It's
is a different
semantics.
thing. I
It's really
understand that. I truly, I do. It's just,
Okay.
I'm just trying to protect the residents of town. That's all I'm trying to do.
All right.
I presume it would have to be someone in the vicinity of an existing power line,
Right.
on other things.
Well, as I said, there's a high line right there, the Oxford Ave one, I'm sorry. There's a high line right there. It's abutting, the industrial land is right on the property line, up at the top, right where they're gonna be putting it.
It's out of the way.
It was
Nobody's
industrial
gonna
at
see
one
it.
point, and why not do that? That's one area of town that we can actually make an industrial area. I mean, it's all industrial down the Oxford end. That's all I'm getting at. It's just certain areas that shouldn't be permitted. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
At the
thank you,
time, I'm
guys.
sorry.
Good discussion. All right, so before we get into this item here, are you gentlemen here to speak to us or spectate? Okay. Okay, you can come up. And, Don, that's login paper, Don, somehow that,
They
Signed
already
in
signed
already.
in, I believe.
oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, everyone signed in,
I'm
all
so
right,
sorry
good.
for taking so much of your time.
Oh, hey, don't worry at all. Learning lesson.
My name is John Pantasy. This is my neighbor, Matt Pedersen. We live on Manzoni Drive, and we are here because we are concerned that the approved subdivision across the street from us is not workable in its current form. Specifically, that 5 of the lots that depend on Manzoni Drive for their access, in fact, do not have legal access to Manzoni Drive. Now, if the board is amenable, I have a handout here that I think will go a long way to clarifying where we're coming from, so
Sure.
I'd like to pass it out.
Have you guys had an opportunity to read our bylaw relative to subdivisions and,
Generally speaking, and
Okay.
I've corresponded with Don Johnson.
Okay.
So, you know, I have a high-level
Thank you.
understanding, but this is, I think, a rather unusual, even complex situation.
Thank you.
So, for the moment, if it's hard with you, we can steer clear of the text and just focus on the pictures. I apologize, what you're seeing on the top of the page here is essentially illegible. It's only there to indicate my property, Matt's property with the green, and the yellow line indicates the subdivision property lots that require access to Manzoni Drive. Matt was good enough to run off some large-scale copies, so we can review these if we need to. I think at this point, it's just important that you understand the concept. That's Manzoni Drive in the middle, and that's us on one side, and that's the subdivision on the other side. Now, if you flip to page 2, this is a plan from 1908, and on the right-hand side is a right-of-way. Highlighted in yellow at the top is the section of interest to us. Highlighted in green is what ultimately became the Manzoni property. Now, if we skip to page 3, what we have here is a breakdown of what makes this so-called right-of-way. What in fact we have here are 2 adjacent rights-of-way. The yellow one on the bottom is the one you just saw on the previous page. Both the DuPont property and the residents of Manzoni Drive have deeded access to that. Okay, what you're seeing in green is a 28-foot stretch of land where it's Manzoni land, where the Manzonis created a right-of-way for use by their children in their effectively compound. There were 4 Manzoni homes there. That 28-foot right-of-way that again was entirely built on Manzoni land consists, moving up from the yellow, first with a 10-foot buffer of unimproved brush, and then we have the 18-foot wide road, Manzoni Drive. Now, if you want to flip to the next page, I've highlighted some things here just to give you a flavor of what's happening at the deed level. And this happens to be Matt's deed, and the yellow part talks about granting him access to the 1908 right-of-way, and both the green parts talk about granting him the access to Manzoni Drive. Now, it's our presumption, I think a reasonable one, that the DuPont property does not have any of these specific deeded rights to access Manzoni Drive. Therefore, we are concerned that in fact, this property is on the market now, and it's being marketed in its current form as an approved subdivision, and we're concerned what is going to happen if that sells as is, and suddenly our concern materializes and in fact is ultimately recognized as legitimate. Now, the other thing I want to emphasize is, Matt and I our mission is not to block this subdivision, but we simply want everyone up front to understand and respect everyone's mutual rights in this whole situation. It's my understanding that if we choose to, as residents, as the current residents of Manzoni Drive, if we choose collectively to grant a use of the right-of-way to these 5 lots, then that would be fine. It's just that right now they don't have it and we haven't given it. So that's the big picture. Any questions?
Well, sir, the way I would try to explain this to you is that what you're seeing, what's for sale, is not technically a subdivision. What it is approval not required, A&R lots that have frontage on a way in existence. That way in existence was, as you pointed out, proposed somewhat as far back as 1908. And then more recently, in March 11th of 1966, when this plan was approved by the planning board in Dudley, if you look on your plan that you highlighted, there is a dimension there that shows a total of 40 feet between all the right-of-ways combined.
And 40 feet to me is simply acknowledging that that is a distance of 40 feet, and that consists of 12 feet plus 10 plus 18.
Right.
And the 10 and 18 portions were created by the Menzonis on their land, and the rights to use it have been deeded to their children and then beyond as the properties are sold. What is confusing us is we do not understand how in any way an adjacent abutter who has no specific deeded right can simply help themselves to Menzoni Drive under the umbrella of the Dudley zoning regulations. It seems to me there's something higher at work here, which would be, I assume, state law surrounding the use of right-of-ways.
Well, there is. It's basically once this, the way I understand it, and I've only been on the planning board for 9 years, and I'm not an attorney, so I don't know everything. But as soon as this plan was filed in 1966, showing that 40-foot right-of-way, any abutters on that 40-foot right-of-way, that's considered a way in existence. They have the right to use it. That right-of-way, those right-of-ways were created so that those other lots could be created. Your lot that your house is built on today couldn't be in existence if there wasn't a right-of-way to get to it. So once you create a right-of-way for the sole purpose of accessing lots, the abutters have the same right to use it. It may not be fair, but
Now, so, I mean, we can at least make out the phrase right-of-way on the 1966 plan. And, you know, it's my assumption that that right-of-way label is simply referring to the 12-foot wide section, which we all agree is accessible by all parties. I don't think the term right-of-way in this case is necessarily meant to apply to Menzoni Drive.
we've had this come up since I've been on the board at least a dozen times. There's been court cases fought in this town over similar situations not that far from where you are. I think you know probably Fairfield Ave, Paula Lane, Circle Drive. That was all given, how could this happen if I built a road and somebody's gonna build another road off of my road? That went to court for years, probably hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions of dollars were spent on those cases. And I think you can see today, Paula Lane and Circle Drive and Fairfield Ave obviously are still there.
They're there, not connected to Menzoni Drive, but they're there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically, what's happening here is that just because there was such a large tract of land that abutted a right-of-way, they were able to get enough frontage on this right-of-way to have these approval not required lots approved by the planning board. I mean, the approval not required process is, in some cases, like for subdivision of land, the reason it comes to the planning board is to let the town know that this is happening so that they know that there's a new lot, a creation of a new lot. We get a fee from the landowner of, I believe it's $100 a lot? $100 a lot, so that we can go back and change our town maps, which have to be updated on a yearly basis. So this large tract of land has now become 9 separate parcels. So we received a check for $900 so we can change our maps. And it's to let the town know that these are now, for all practical purposes, in most cases, buildable lots. They're accessing on a right-of-way that really the only people who could be here opposing it, in my opinion, would be the Menzones, who originally owned that land. But they took that land and created a right-of-way so that they could have more lots and build off of them. And when they did that, they're utilizing that piece of property of land as a right-of-way. And from what I understand, the abutters have the same right. If you have land that abuts up to a right-of-way, you have a right to use it. And in this case, what's even interesting is 12 feet of that 40-foot right-of-way that you just pointed out was land that came from the DuPonts, or was
Yes.
DuPont land. So they have contributed to this right-of-way. Maybe not 50/50, but they have contributed to the right-of-way. So
Although
in some
before,
cases,
I mean, the Manzonis, and as do Matt and I, we also have equal access deeded to the right-of-way, which we're characterizing as being on the DuPont property.
right, but you have no authority to give anybody else access to it. You have access for your parcel of property, he has access for his parcel of property. There's nothing to do with the other parcels of property there. So the current land, this land with this right-of-way is underneath, that's situated on, was never given to the town of Dudley. So it's not a town road.
Right,
It's a
of
way in,
course.
it's a way in
Right.
existence. It is named, and for the last 25 years, it has been plowed, maintained, and sanded by the town of Dudley. So,
But that has nothing to do with it.
I'm sorry, what?
That has nothing to
Yeah.
do with the reason that it was approved.
Right, I am beginning to understand that.
so once you have, once you have a subdivision plan and you lay out roads, and your subdivision plan comes before the planning board and the planning board approves it. Now, if somebody abuts that road, and we approve that road, those people have just been given frontage on an approved way. Doesn't mean it's gonna be given to the town, because if you think about it, every subdivision in town, you had some people here tonight, we had a developer here tonight that built a subdivision in the town of Dudley. It's 9 years old, he still owns the road. The town of Dudley doesn't own the road, he does. And he would like to give it to the town of Dudley so that we can maintain it for him, because he's been personally maintaining it for 9 years. But that's not gonna happen until he has all of his, let's say, ducks in a row, for lack of a better term. But he has to finish up the subdivision to the specifications that we all agreed upon and what was approved to. And there's a lot of roads in Dudley that, go back as far as what you found, back to the
Right.
1800s, or not even 1900s, 1800s, that were never given to the town of Dudley. So originally, the original landowner who laid it out, they still own that land, but they're the only ones who can, grant more access to it. But once it gets approved, such as this one did in 1966, the abutters have access. And that's gone to court hundreds of times in the state of Massachusetts, and it's always been found that those people do have access to some degree.
Now, given that it's a so-called private way, does the town have any concerns about the dimensions or the condition of Manzoni Drive and its ability to accept this much more traffic?
Well, my guess would be is that if all those lots were purchased by a single developer, my guess would be he would make improvements to the roadway. He would make improvements to the roadway to make it serviceable, because at some point in time, if he's gonna build expensive homes on those lots, people who typically people who buy an expensive house is gonna wanna have a road that's serviced by the town, and a good road. So to do that, they're gonna have to look at our rules and regulations for the division of land, or subdivision rules and regulations, have a layout and a standard for how to build a road. So if they came in and they bought up all that land, and it was a big developer, and he said, okay, I would like to go in and bring this up to what the current standards are today, not from 1908 or 1966, they have the right to do that. That's another thing they have a right to do, believe it or not. If you're in a butter to a way, you have a right to make an improvement to that way.
So, I mean, given that Manzoni Drive is now 18 feet wide with this 10-foot buffer, it sounds to me that they can spill over into this 10-foot buffer as much or as little as they want.
Not to build anything.
How would they expand the road?
Oh, they would use the 40-foot width, the 40-foot right-of-way width.
Okay, so,
By
in
today-
other words, yeah, I probably wasn't clear. They, I guess, would then probably spill over into the 10-foot buffer zone that the Manzonis created on
Right.
their land.
And the 12-foot, that was the previous, the 12-foot right-of-way that was the previous, that went with the previous lots, the DuPont land.
So obviously wouldn't happen, but in theory, there could be a 40-foot wide road.
Well, it'd be a 40-foot wide taking, or a 40-foot wide right-of-way.
Yeah,
Our current,
right.
our current standard today is not 40 feet. It used to be 40 feet, it's now 50 feet. Our current standard roadway width is 26 feet wide. So a standard two-lane road in Dudley is 26 feet wide, and then it would be, 26 would give us, what, an 8-foot buffer on either zone? 16, no, 9 and 9, say, something like that. Can't do math after 9 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
But basically, that's the way the new standards are. They're up at, the right-of-way or the taking for the roadway is 50 feet. Back in the 60s, most of them were laid out at 40 feet,
Yeah,
but the roads were probably paved at 20 feet wide. So if you had a 20-foot wide road, you had a 10-foot lane for either side, that's probably more than enough. But there is a possibility that, like I said, if a big developer came in and bought up all that land and wanted to build, you know, if you're gonna build a $400,000 house in that area, you're gonna have to put a decent road in. Otherwise, nobody's gonna wanna buy it.
now, currently, we enjoy, through some supposed grandfathered list, the town plowing Manzoni Drive and intersecting Donna Lane. Given, you know, if it changes, more houses, wider road, does that mean that the town will no longer do the plowing and the sweeping?
Well, I can't speak for the,
Yeah.
the roads are handled by the road commissioners, and the road commissioners in Dudley are the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
So they judge, you know, and I don't know how it's judged, because we do have some private streets in town that are like yours, paved, and swept or, you know, maintained, plowed and sanded, and we have others that are unpaved that are plowed and sanded, and we have some that are paved
None of the
that are not maintained or plowed or sanded at all.
Mm.
So, I don't know how that gets decided or when a change like that would happen, but my guess would be is if it happened for 25 years, more than likely it's gonna continue to happen. I mean, if you have a better road, it's gonna be easier to maintain. If you have a newer road, it's gonna be less maintenance for the town. I mean, the other thing you can do as homeowners, if you don't know this, as homeowners, and whoever buys the parcels that are for sale now, all together, collectively, or even individually, you could put a citizens petition article on the town warrant meeting, on the town meeting warrant, I should say, and ask the town to accept the road. I mean, if it gets rebuilt and it's new, that's when you want to do it, because when you, after it gets into disrepair, or it's not, you know, not in good shape, like this gentleman was here tonight, his subdivision's 9 years old, and the town made the last subdivision that was probably older than 9 years old, seal coat the entire road before we took it as a town way. You know, but if this situation arose where, like I said, that large tract of land was purchased and all new homes were built there and the roadway was upgraded, then I think it would be the perfect situation to ask the town to accept it. And then you're living on a public way, and you'll enjoy all the benefits of you know, what a public street has.
So, even though the maximum right-of-way here is 40 feet and the standard is now 50, and I wouldn't presume to assess, you know, I assume the town would have other requirements regarding drainage and that sort of thing. It's still possible for the town to accept a road, even though it may not meet current standards?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we have taken roads with less than 40-foot
yeah,
takings.
okay.
So, I mean, back then, they didn't lay it out at 50 feet. I mean, I know Route 197 was laid out in before 1900, and it's a state highway, and the taking for that was only 66 feet for that,
Mm.
and that was a state highway, so.
Used to have, they call them two-rod roads, they're 33 feet from fence,
Right.
from wall to wall.
Yeah,
And
that's
that was, in that case, it was a four-rod road.
right. Back in the day, they didn't survey with feet and inches, they had rods and links, and the surveyors had a chain, that was how many links they counted and stuff like that. But, yeah, I mean, there was people here the night that we approved this plan that abutted it on Fairfield Ave, and they were having the same conversation, because they built it, there's a road there, but they built it and they own it. And they haven't given it to the town, so how can somebody go off of their road? They can. There's nothing we can do about it. I mean, once you build a road and put it into existence, it's there, you know? And if somebody happens to abut it, now you're just giving them access to their property.
So just out of curiosity, if the Menzonis had left a strip of property between their right-of-way and the 1908 right-of-way, can I guess this would not be an issue? Because then these new lots are not abutting the Menzoni right-of-way, they're simply abutting some of the Menzoni land.
Well, it would have been hard, when you say a strip of land, I mean, if it was 10 feet, probably not enough, but if it was 100 feet, you know, and there was a lot, you know, if you're gonna build the road, you build it down the middle of your property rather than on the edge of your property, might be the way to say it's the better way to do it. And in this case, they built their right of way on the edge of the property.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
case, probably both, the Menzonis probably had access gave access to both sides of the initial right-of-way. So they would have had access from that right-of-way as well as the DuPont property.
Right.
Possibly. So they wouldn't want to lock themselves off.
So Fairview and Menzone were the only two access points to that property. So if they didn't have access because those were two private roads, then that land would just be locked and they wouldn't have any ability to do anything with it.
Right.
So that's why that's in existence, because you'd have land that's deemed unusable without any access at all.
Right, I mean, a glance at a quality reproduction, would suggest, well, geez, that maybe by extending Progress Avenue a bit, you could accomplish the same amount of frontage in this particular case without really damaging the lot design as it stands today. But I know that's not what we're here to talk about.
Right.
I know you guys
So there are other
tired
solutions, yeah, I see what you're saying.
and not done, so.
Well, the other thing too, I don't know if it's on the map that you have there, but there is, from Progress Avenue through, all the way to Fairview, wasn't it? There was a sewage right away.
I've seen a right-of-way, and the plan was so blurry, I couldn't make out how it was labeled, and I didn't know what it was for.
Yeah,
Okay.
that right away,
On the
there is a sewage line running through that
Okay.
property right now.
It's on the plan, yeah.
Yeah, it was on their plan that they submitted to us, and we asked the same question, why don't you use this right away? And they're like, well, there's a sewer line there, and we didn't want to upset anything.
Okay. All right, well, I don't know, Matt, you have any questions? Yeah.
Pretty much answered it all.
All right, well, we thank you all very much, Guy especially.
Mhm.
We've learned a lot. We're a bit disappointed. Does seem a bit unfair, but I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay, item F, discussion on status of economic development planning. Don,
Doing the research, I hope next month we'll have
have more information.
information on the.
Okay, planner's plate.
public. Well, looks like a week's coming up, and doing more research into these potential zoning articles, and economic development as well.
Okay.
So it's on my plate.
Did we get everything signed that you needed to have signed? I know, no, I know that John Breyer was coming in to sign something, and Pam as well. Are we good with that?
That's
Yeah,
all
it was
done.
all
That's-
signed.
That went out yesterday.
Okay.
Good process.
Right on the wire, right?
No, today we're going around the wire.
All right, good.
Good to give at least one day.
Okay.
It worked out though, when I came back in and everything, it worked out well.
Any comments from the planning board?
Just, how are you feeling these days, Don?
I'm fine.
Oh, good.
It's not cellulitis.
It's healthy as a horse.
Not healthy as a horse, but I have enough antibiotics that I should be. I eat germs in the anyway.
Okay. There's no audience comments. I guess, so the only final thing that we need is to sign the minutes, and you have those, or are they in here that you want us
I
to
think you
sign?
might have the original.
Huh?
You might have the original one. You
Okay.
want to check on that? I think John put the original in yours.
Okay. Yep.
You have 2 copies?
You need one or two, Don?
Just one. We'll make a copy of it, file the original, and a copy of the town clerk. Vice
All right,
versa.
while we're signing these, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn if there's nothing else. So
Make a
moved.
motion to adjourn this meeting?
I second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, to adjourn the meeting, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good night. Thanks, Fred.